What is goody in the hoodie, Blackwell family? Welcome back to the Blackwell Box, where we heal through real conversations with real people. I am your host, Wellness Liss, and as always, happy Wellness Wednesday, y'all. Happy Wellness Wednesday to everybody who is tuning in. This is actually my first time going live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram live at the same time. So you will see my eyes going back and forth because we got a multi-camera situation going on. So thank you everybody for hopping in here. We about to just get straight to it. So today this is the Talk to Me Nice Q&A segment of the Blackwell Box. And before we get started, I actually have an announcement. I have an announcement since the last time I seen you guys. It's been a little minute. If you haven't seen the other 9 episodes, make sure you go ahead and check those out. We are on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Stitcher, Spotify. I think I already said that. You can get the video of the podcast on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and now for the first time ever on my Instagram at wellness.liss. This one is going to be live, and I'm gonna make sure I save this one. So first and foremost, make sure that you are following the Blackwell Box on all platforms. Yes, that is the Blackwell Box on all platforms. You can Google it and you'll see us in there. Also, you can check us out. You can check us out on your Alexa. If you have an Alexa, say, hey, Alexa, play the Blackwell Box podcast, and boom, flip, skip. I'm going to be in your bedroom. Okay. So this is the announcement. This is the announcement. All right. Because people probably like, that's not announcing. You say that every time. Well, the announcement is I have officially passed my NCE, my National Counselor Examination. So your girl is licensed outside. Okay. Okay. I'm not a supervised therapist anymore. I am a licensed associate professional counselor. Yep. Yep. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Give it up. Give it up. Yeah, I know. I know y'all real proud of me. So we outside. We just leveled up. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So that was the first announcement. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. All right. So now we about to just get straight into the questions. I don't know how many questions I got. I heard your advice last time. It actually was my sister who was like, yo, I was in the last Q&A and I wanted to ask some, but I didn't want everybody to know my questions be up in my business. So boom, I found a platform where we can get some anonymous questions going. So I got about, I don't know how many, but I'm gonna answer them all. If you have any other questions, for the people who are on Twitter, who are on Twitch, who are on YouTube, and who are on Instagram, go ahead and drop your questions. Let me make sure I'm right here where I can see the questions coming in if you have any. But if not, I'm about to get into the ones that I already got. So first, this is in no particular order, y'all. We just here shooting the shits, you know. And actually, I was not cussing this entire season, and sure enough, there I did cuss on the last episode. But you know, it's the finale. Talk to me nice. So we're gonna do it. The first question that I got, let me see. I'm gonna start down here. The first question I got is, please give me pickup lines that always work. I really don't have no pickup lines because I'm in a relationship already. Um, but when I do want to flirt with Morgan, I just be like, excuse me, miss, can I talk to you for a minute? Bam. So I don't really have no pickup lines. That was a very anticlimactic first question. So let's see. Let's get into the next question. How can I start a wellness journey before having a therapist? All right. So this question I actually get a lot because some people who are interested in mental health don't necessarily have a therapist, or it's not necessarily super quick to be able to get a therapist. Like it doesn't happen overnight, especially one that you like. So, with the question being, how can you start your wellness journey before having a therapist? I would say just starting with yourself. Like for real, if you say you want to start a wellness journey, 9 out of 10 times is because there's something that you see in your life that you feel like can improve. So first, being able to pay really close attention to what things in your life you want to improve, because even when you get a therapist, a good therapist should not be telling you, oh, this is what you need to fix, this is what you need to do. They just kind of hear what you have going on and give you some input, help you to reach the conclusion that you want to reach to live your best life. So I would say first and foremost, be really clear about like why you want to start your wellness journey in the first place. Like what is the number one thing, because it's very easy to get confused when you have multiple things going on, multiple goals you're trying to hit at the same time. So, especially if you're just starting out your wellness journey, you don't have a therapist, then you can go ahead and just get really like specific with yourself on, okay, why do I want to start this wellness journey? What does my life need more of, and what does my life need less of? Where am I lacking? Where would I like to add? And then when you go from there, there's so much self-help content. Like there's so much self-help content that you can get. One, you can listen to the Blackwell Box podcast, period. It's free. Second, you can always slide in my DMs if you have a question. And I might not give you the whole tea for the free, but that's also a resource you can use in the meantime, in between time. But also there are lots of mental health and wellness content creators, mental health resources that can give you different things based on that specific thing. So you say, okay, first step, all right, I want to start my wellness journey. Boom. Why? What does my life need more of? Where am I lacking in? And then go in that and read different things and assess your life. One of the first things that I always do in a therapy session is I illustrate that most of the friction that we have in our life, most of the problems come from our brain has this picture frame, right? It has this quality world, this ideal world, in a perfect world. Like I will be skinny, I will be rich, I will have this, I will have that, right? But what we see in our reality does not equal that. And so we act in different ways to try to get as close as we can to even that out. So the first thing I would say is to figure out, okay, why do I want to start this wellness journey? And if you really can't even find that answer, then go ahead and get you a sheet of paper, fold it in half. On one side, I want you to write like everything that's in your life, like what your perfect like life would look like financially, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, socially. What kind of partner do you want? Write down whatever comes to your mind. Okay. And then on the flip side, I want you to write what is your reality in comparison to that. So if on the left side you wrote, I want a big loving family. On the right side, I want you to write your reality. Do you have a big loving family? Is that something that's already good in your life and in your wellness space? Or do you want more family? Because family isn't just blood, you know? And so kind of going from there, and that will help you start to see, okay, what areas, what themes do I need to really hit home on and start getting some resources. And when you do get that therapist, you'll be really prepared. They're gonna be like, wow, you've been doing some homework before class. Okay. So that's my tip, y'all. Hold on. The next one. The next one. Why did you start Blackwell? Okay. So I started Blackwell because I already had an organization, Car Kids Wellness, which is the acronym for Creative Arts and Recreational Therapy Interventions, right? So it's centered around helping Black and Brown kids get mentorships, get mental health resources and interventions in a way that is really receptive to Black and Brown people. So for Black and Brown people, we are very creative. We are very expressive in the arts. We're good at sports. And so a lot of people don't realize that there are lots of things that can be therapeutic that aren't necessarily just sit down, tell me how you feel. And so I created Car Kids Wellness to bring that to Black and Brown youth. So after I created Car Kids Wellness, I had started on Instagram, promoting just making mental health reels for real, just making reels and content just to inform Black people on the things that I know as a therapist. And I had so many people reaching out like, yo, are you taking clients? Yo, can I get a therapy session? Yo, like we need this Car Kids Wellness for adults. Like what's going on? And so I was like, okay, boom, flip, skip. I hear you. I hear you. And then from there, I came up with the concept of Blackwell, which goes to the space of Black wellness. Okay. And so Blackwell was a place to have some mental health resources for Black and Brown adults to still get those same mental health kind of judge. It really was created for the Black and Brown adult in the interim, in addition to, or for the ones who just wasn't going to go to therapy, who wasn't going to go to therapy at all, but still wanted that. And so when I initially came up with the concept, it actually was not even a podcast. It was not even a podcast at all. I actually, the name, the Blackwell Box, comes from the original idea, which is still in the works of self help decks. So, decks of cards that give you different prompts, questions, affirmations that you can use in a one on one or in a group setting to be able to, start working on your wellness. Those are dropping this fall. So keep your eye on the lookout. Yes. And so with that, that's where the original, concept of the Blackwell box came from. And just kind of getting a lot of opinions from people about like, yo, you should make a podcast. You should do this. You should make a show. And I actually was talking to Morgan and I was like, I always wanted to be a host, but I didn't think that was a real job. Boom, flip, skip. She come home with a microphone and headset, and here we are. We in the Blackwell Box podcast. So that's really why I started it, to create a resource for Black and Brown people to use in addition to, or for the people who just wasn't going to therapy but still needed that mental health assistance. So that's where it got started from. All right. Next, next. What advice do you have for someone who comes from a distant family? What advice do I have for someone who comes from a distant family? So I'm not exactly sure what you mean by a distant family, but I'm guessing you mean by like you're not really that cool. Y'all not really like tight like this, like that. I would say one, the question is, do you want that relationship? Like, do you want a close family? Do you want to be close to those people in your life? Or are you okay with that? Because I think that there's this misconception that we have to be close to the people that we are related to, that we have to have this very open and we hang out all the time. We key relationship with our blood family. And I personally don't think that that's true. How I define family are the people who show up for me and who I can show up for, who add value to my life and vice versa. So my concept of family per se is a little bit different than the traditional view of this is my brother, this is my sister. I make the people around me really earn those titles. So I don't really have necessarily distant family because if we distant, if we not vibing, if we can't key, if we can't be there for each other, I don't really consider those people my family. But if you are talking about your blood family and y'all are distant, I would say to try to reach out to them if it is a concern, which it sounds like if you sitting here asking me what to do with it, it's something that is of concern to you. It's something that you care about. So I say like put your ego aside. I was just watching a clip today, and it was talking about ego, and our ego gets us in trouble so many times. Like if you want to be close to your family, call them on the phone, text them, go see them. Like if that's something that's important to you, and that's with anything. If that's something that's important to you, if that's don't let people make you feel like, "Oh, I can't do that." Well, if they care, they would hit me up first. No, clearly you care. Hit them up first and see what goes from there. I think that's the first step is just reaching out if it's something that is on your mind for real, for real. So that's the answer to that. Like I said, it wasn't super descriptive because I'm not exactly sure about what you mean by a distant family. But if that's what you mean, if you mean just like y'all live far away from each other, I'm in Atlanta, all my family is in Cleveland, then FaceTime's great, y'all. I don't know if that's what you mean though. All right, next. What is the weirdest thing you've ever eaten? Okay. So last time I did this, I actually vetted the questions a lot better. This time we're just going with what we go with. So, what is the weirdest thing I've ever eaten? I think the weirdest thing I've ever eaten is a cow tongue. I ate cow tongue when I was on a cruise and it was really weird. It was the texture was like jello with like grainy texture to it. I don't know. It really wasn't a vibe. It was really brown. Would not suggest, would not do it again, but it was probably either that or escargot, which is snails, which also just tastes like mushroom and dirt. So that's the weirdest thing that I've ever eaten. Next, how tall am I? Why you want to know my business? Why do you want to know how tall I am? Why? Why? I'm 5'4.5", but I usually lie and tell people I'm 5'5", but cat's out the bag now. I'm really 5'4.5", unless I got on Tims or Air Maxes or something with a little, But I'm 5'4.5". I have been that height for like most of my life. All right, let's see. What phone do you have? I don't know. I think this is a iPhone 12 Pro, if that's a thing. iPhone 12 Pro. My work phone is an iPhone 11, and I shoot all my content on my phone. Fun fact. All right. Next up. The next question we got. Let's see if we get a little mental healthy. Oh, here we go. How do you deal with anxiety? Okay. How do you deal with anxiety? This is a good one. So I feel like first, I want to normalize that like niggas be anxious, y'all. You are not the only person who be in your head or overthinking stuff. Like, I think the first step is to normalize that, like, this is a thing. This is a thing that multiple people deal with. It's cool. I'm not crazy. And that's the first step. Like, you have to call a thing a thing. And so, with that, I always suggest when I talk to people professionally and personally with anxiety that you think out loud because what that does is that helps you to literally call a thing. Okay. So when I say call a thing, I mean to be able to think out loud about the things that you have in your head. So instead of just being in your head like, okay, well, Or what if that goes wrong? I feel like saying those things out loud, whether it be out your mouth, whether it be writing it down in a journal, just getting those things out will help you, one, recognize how often these anxious, intrusive thoughts are coming. And then on the next piece, it helps you to be able to say it out loud and hear, like, is this realistic? Is this realistic? So there are several different, according to different psychological kind of things, theories. I actually made a post about this before when I did infographics, and I stopped making them because I feel like they didn't get enough love. But there are different irrational beliefs that we have, and that's where a lot of anxiety comes from. So I would suggest looking up, because I'm not gonna do the work for you right here completely. Look up CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, irrational thought patterns. Okay. It's like 6 or 8 common thought patterns that really have where anxiety usually stem from. So some of them might be black or white thinking, overgeneralization, minimization. So those are just different things, basically how our brain thinks that it naturally does to protect us, to help us out. Like, our anxious thoughts are not to hate on us. It's really your brain trying to help you out. So first, just knowing that that's a thing, and then looking up to be able to tell, okay, what kind of anxious thoughts do I have? Do I think that people don't like me? Do I think that people around me are going to die? Like, what is the anxious thought that I have? So that you can kind of directly hit it. And like I said, saying it out loud and asking yourself, like, okay, is this facts? Is this facts? On what basis? On what basis am I saying this? And then on the other side of it, is this thought helpful? Is this thought helpful? Because that thought alone, let's say I walk into a new situation, I'm in a new job, and I don't know people. I don't know what they're gonna be on, X, Y, and Z. So I come in like, oh God, what if they think I'm ugly? What if they think I'm not good at it? What if my mom calls me and I'm in a meeting? All of these things. So some of those might be valid. You may go through the irrational things and be like, nah, like, I'm not tripping. I'm not tripping. This is valid. But is that anxious thought helpful? If you say that you want to be successful in this space, you want to socialize in this space, you want to make friends, you want to do whatever, is that thought helpful? Does that add to that? You guys know I always come back to my favorite WDEP method, which is, what do you want? What are you doing? Evaluating it and making a plan. What do I want? I want to be conducive in this space. I want to have good thoughts. I want to have good energy. Okay. What am I doing? I'm thinking things that I have not confirmed, that I'm just thinking these negative or anxious things. Okay, evaluate. Does that help? Does that feed into what you say you want? If I say I want to be at peace in this space, and I'm allowing myself to constantly have these negative thoughts that I have not even confirmed because they are just thoughts, does that help? Okay, based on yes or no, what's the plan? Are we going to keep doing it and shut up and just be anxious? Or are we going to pivot and say, every time I get this anxious thought, I'm going to combat it with, but you don't know that. There's simple things like that, but you don't know that. Is that helpful? Just saying it out loud. So those are like the main things that I think, really just being in control of your thoughts. Like, you have to know that you are in control of your thoughts, bro. You are. Is it not? It's not easy sometimes. There are intrusive thoughts. People with PTSD suffer with a lot of intrusive thoughts. But at the end of the day, we are in control of our brain. Okay. You cannot go around saying, I can't control it. I can't help it. I don't know what to do about it. The first thing you need to do about it is know, this is me. This is my brain. I am choosing to have these thoughts, because the second you give yourself that power, you also add to your power to be able to change it. You're not going to change it if you keep saying, well, I'm only thinking this because of that, because this happened in my past, or because this might happen in my future, or because it's just so quick, I can't control it. I hate when I hear people say, I can't control my thoughts. Like, it's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult to control my thoughts, but you can. And when you remove that power from yourself and you say what you can't do in your own head, you have already, like, started yourself 10 steps back. So just saying, like, I control these thoughts. I can control these thoughts. Picking affirmations, if you spiritual, scriptures, mantras, things that you can say. One thing that really helped me when I was going through like a really anxious and depressive episode in undergrad was, like, I had a bucket load of affirmations. And whenever I would think something negative, like a suicidal thought or something like anxious or anxiety provoking, I will immediately say my affirmation. My favorite one is the serenity prayer right now. It has been the most long-standing one. But yeah, just having things in your toolbox to say, okay, I'm in control of my anxiety. I'm in control of these anxious thoughts. I know that they might come. I recognize that. I'm self-aware enough to recognize that this is the kind of anxious thoughts that I have sometimes. I know that I'm in control. I know that I'm in the driver's seat and that I'm the one doing it. So is that helpful? Do I want to have that? And if I say, okay, yeah, I don't want to do the work, shut up. Be anxious, bro. Hate to say it. Be quiet and be anxious. But if you say, no, I really want to work on this, I really don't want to walk in this space. All right, so what do we need to do? And that is equipping yourself with things to combat the anxiety. All right. So you can't just think, okay, I got an anxious thought. No, 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 don't think that. Don't think that. That's just like step one. Because then what? Your brain's just going to be empty and another one just going to creep in, right? No. So for every anxious thought, you got to say, okay, I'm in control of the thought that I feel like I'm about to fall in front of all of these people. Is that helpful? No. Okay. I'm about to be good. I'm about to walk fine. And if you do, in turn, worst case scenario, fall, you have at least started that battle of facing those anxious thoughts. Because in life, you're not trying to not fall. You're trying to go into things with a clear mind. So just calling those things out. And again, make sure you're looking up CBT, irrational thoughts. CBT, irrational thoughts. And that'll kind of give you some vocabulary, like, oh, that's what it's called. Because that also helps normalize, like, okay, other people must be feeling this as well. All right, next. I hope that answered your question. How do you deal with your partner not wanting to go to therapy? Okay, so you woke and your man or your girl or your they them is not. Got it, heard you. All right, so if your partner does not want to go to therapy, I would say first and foremost, whenever I always suggest people when they going into things with people, like they want something from somebody, is first to sit with yourself and figure out what do you want from this person and why do you want it and what is your non-negotiables. Is this a deal breaker or is this just something that you kind of want that would be cool? Because how you approach those two situations will be very different. Okay, so if this is just something that you think and ain't a deal breaker, is just something to help, then I think you go into that and you say why you advocate for that, why you think that's something of importance for you, and then you kind of leave it where it is and you put that autonomy in their hands. Because when you try to force people into things, when they do go to therapy, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. I never suggest forcing people. And I work sometimes with mandated clients who have to go to therapy. And I even let them know, hey, I know that this is a requirement. I want you to try. I want you to be invested, but I'm not going to waste anybody's time. I'll just tell the judge you don't want to be here. And so because you don't ever want to put a bad taste in somebody's mouth that they have to go, you don't have to be a better person. You don't want to go to therapy. You don't want to be better. You got a better suggestion? Either prove me wrong that you have something better or go about your miserable life, because there are people who actually want this space. So if it's not a non-negotiable, then I think, just presenting it in that way of why and going for yourself and being communicative with your partner. Yo, I've been going, this is what's been good with me. These are the positive things of it because a lot of times people just don't know. They really don't know what it's about and they don't want to just go and talk to a stranger and hope that they feel better when they don't even know this person. They don't even know if this is actually going to work or be helpful. So that's the first thing. Is it a non-negotiable? Second, if it's a non-negotiable for you, communicate that directly to your partner. If you do not go, baby girl, baby boy, if you don't go to therapy, we're done. We're done. And it may sound crazy, but if it sounds crazy, then it's not a non-negotiable. It's not a non-negotiable for you. And then you need to reassess how you can bring it to them in a way where they can still have autonomy over it. And I think a lot of times just modeling is a great way to help people do things. It's an amazing way. A lot of the people that I work with, a lot of the clients, personally, professionally, kids, adult, I model the behavior that I want. And Morgan even tell you she's in here right now. If we talking about something and I want her to say thank you to me, I will say thank you, Alyssa, for doing that. That's what I need you to say. And I model the behavior that I want, and that I think does a lot of good because it shows that I'm willing to do this as well. I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to show you what I need. And it's not just a one-sided ask. So model that behavior, go to therapy yourself, continue to be invested, communicate with your partner why you think that it's helpful. And that's how you model that behavior. And hopefully they will then in turn see and be more willing to go in there with you. Also, if you have a one-on-one therapy, invite them to come to one session. Have them test it out. Have them see what it's about instead of saying, yo, baby, we need to go to couples therapy tomorrow. Walk the walk that you expect somebody else to do. So that's my answer to what would I do if I had a partner who did not want to go to therapy. All right. Next, are there cures for mental health problems? So this one's a little tricky, okay? Because, okay, first we have to define what I'm going to be saying when I say mental health problems. So when I say mental health problems, I'm going to say mental health diagnosis, like clinically depressed, clinical anxiety, clinical bipolar, not just I feel like I'll be sad. And it's not to downplay those things, but that's just for clarification because there's two separate answers to that. So one with something that is clinically diagnosed, are there cures? I think so. When there comes to a diagnosis, what it really is similarly to where you have a physical diagnosis like bronchitis or something. There's certain criteria that you have to hit. So, for example, in order to have ADHD, you have to hit at least 6 of the criteria on the list. So, if through therapy or personal work or behavior management, you figure out, okay, you got your 6 things, but now you're not hyperactive anymore. You just got 5. Technically, you are not clinically, you do not have ADHD anymore clinically. So, in that case, yes, you would be cleared from that diagnosis. You would be cured from that diagnosis. But as far as cured from the symptoms completely, there are some diagnoses, for example, like schizophrenia, like bipolar, where it is a little more difficult, like ASD, autism spectrum disorder, where autism, for example, it is a spectrum. So you can be high functioning or you can be lower functioning. In that case, you wouldn't really be cured out of it because that's a developmental disorder. So this answer is really low key. I feel myself getting in the trenches with it, but more or less, it really just depends. It really just depends. If it's a developmental disorder, something that you are born with, I wouldn't really say cured, but I do think that there's always room to continue to decrease your symptoms. So if you are even clinically depressed, okay, let's say you're clinically depressed, you meet the criteria, you hit all the factors, over time, by working with therapists, by working with yourself, spirituality, whatever it is that you do, you can decrease your symptoms to the point where you are not clinically depressed or you have no depressive symptoms at all. They can reoccur. You can have a biological predisposition where you are kind of more likely than others to get it or to have episodes again. But absolutely, you can, like I said, empowerment, coming from that empowerment space. You control your behavior, you control your emotions, you control your thoughts. Okay. So, with that being said, if you can control them, which we all know that you can, which I'm empowering you that you can, then you can decrease them to the point where you are not clinically or that you do not have those symptoms at all. So, you can definitely decrease your symptoms, decrease your amount of distress with any medical mental health diagnosis. The last criteria for all of them is that it causes significant impairment or distress in your daily life. So you can give you get your depressive symptoms or your ASD symptoms, your ADHD symptoms to the point where it does not cause any distress in your life. It does not cause problems in your day-to-day living and impairment. Then technically, yeah, you are cured from that mental health disorder. So yes, you can reduce your symptoms. It takes a lot of work depending on, the level or the severity of it, but we can control our thoughts. And that's one thing that, it depends on the therapist that you ask. I will say it depends on the therapist that you ask. But from my orientation, yes, we can control our thoughts, we can control our actions, we can control our feelings. Some are easier than others. But if you put in the work, you put in the time, then yes, you can. I actually come from the orientation of choice theory, reality therapy, which is coined by Dr. Glasser, who believes that we can cure physical ailments. Our mind is so strong. We are so in control of ourselves that we can cure physical ailments like headaches, like stroke, like we can prevent those things from being in control and really taking that empowerment of this is my body. I'm in control of how I move and how I allow it to be. So, yes, I think so. But that is one that it depends on who you ask and it depends what diagnosis you are talking about. So that is controversial. Okay. Next, how to become a therapist. All right. If you're on here and you want to become a therapist, first and foremost, you need to make sure you need to ask yourself why you want to be a therapist. All right, bro. I tell people all the time, people are like, oh, I love psychology. I love just learning about people and helping them feel better. And that's all great. But when you get to the meat and potatoes of it, you need to first realize that it is hard work. You are healing people. You are helping people every day become the best version of themselves. And sometimes that's very, very difficult and taxing. So before you even look at how to become a therapist, talk to somebody who is actually a therapist. The longer they've been a therapist, the better, and assess like, is that something that I even really want to do? Okay. Because you may or may not get rich, but you most likely will be exhausted at some point, emotionally drained at some point. And so you need to make sure that this is something you really want to do because you don't want to end up hurting your clients more because you're not in the right headspace. Okay. So that's the first thing. I always had to say that. Okay. Especially when people say they want to go to school for psychology and stuff. Next, how to become a therapist. So first, you have to get your bachelor's in a social science. So I got my bachelor's in psychology, criminology, and sociology. Yeah, your girl's smart. And so you get your bachelor's, and then you go and get your master's. It takes 4 years roughly. It took me 3 years because your girl's smart to get my bachelor's. But then you go and get your master's, which usually takes a 2-year program. So when you get your master's, listen, listen, listen. Make sure that you are going to a program that is K-CREP accredited, preferably K-CREP accredited. I did not, and honey baby, the wheels I had to jump through on the back end to fight because my master's is in forensic psychology because I'm interested in the intersection between mental health and criminal justice. I say all that to say you're gonna have to fight for your life if you don't go to a K-CREP accredited university. So make sure that you are going to that. It's really easy to check on the internet. Clearly, I didn't check it, but it's important. All right. And so the big reason why I did not is because I thought I wanted to go all the way and get a PhD or a PsyD, which I no longer do. I no longer want to go back to college. So if you want to go all the way, it really doesn't matter. But if you would like to be a master's level therapist, that's really all you need is a master's. Then go ahead and make sure you go to a K-CREP university and get your master's in like mental health counseling, clinical psychology, something along those lines. Preferably something that has counseling in the name of the degree if you want to stop at the master's level. Boom. Then you have to take, depending on where you live, you have to take the test. That's what I said when I first came in and I passed my test. We outside. Okay, so you have to pass the test. The test that I took for Atlanta is the NCE. It is a 200 question multiple choice 4-hour test, and your girl passed with flying colors, like period. Okay, and so you study for that for however long it takes you to study. Go ahead and look online, get a bunch of materials. I suggest the purple book if you're one of those people that is taking the NCE. So you take your state test, you apply within that state. It is best if you can to take your state exam as close to when you graduate as possible. It will be a lot easier for you. The school usually will help you get registered and all that. So if you can, take it as soon as you graduate, even while you're still in school. I know some people who did. So you take the test, you pass, you apply for the state that you want to do, you pay the little fee, and they come in. Once you pass the test, they say, all right, you are at that level, associate license. You also have to get, depending on your state, a certain amount of hours. So depending on the state, it's anywhere from like 1,000 to like 4,000. I know that's a big jump, but it just depends where you live. 4,000 hours working as a therapist in being supervised. So like I said, how I was a supervised therapist and now I'm an LAPC. So you have to have a certain amount of hours as a supervised therapist. And then you go ahead, you have to have a supervisor who meets with you weekly to talk about your caseload, talk about what's going on, making sure you're not just out here messing up these people's lives and help guide you through that. If you are a person of color, I strongly, strongly suggest that you are doing your internship or getting your hours someplace that has clients or supervisors that look like you. Mainly having a supervisor that looked like you that changed my life. When I had a white supervisor versus having a black female supervisor, it was completely night and day. And now have a different black supervisor and it's still that same energy. So I would suggest if you are a minority person of color, do what you want to do, but I would suggest looking for a supervisor who also has similar demographics as you. And then after you get your hours, then you a therapist, all right? You outside. But technically, as soon as you graduate and pass your test, you are still a therapist. You just before you pass the test, you a supervised therapist. So there's different levels. All right, what can I do for PTSD? What can I do for PTSD? So PTSD, for those who do not know, post-traumatic stress disorder, it is a trauma and stressor related disorder. That's the umbrella that it falls under. And with any of these, um, or with PTSD specifically, it is caused by there either one or multiple traumatic experiences. And when it is a traumatic experience, it is relative to you. So somebody may get shot and it may not be traumatic to them. Somebody else may get just grazed or see somebody shot and they may get PTSD from that. It depends on the person. It depends on how much it, like I said, going back to the point, how much distress or impairment it causes in your life. All right. So that's what PTSD is. It usually causes some type of psychological distress. So either having reoccurring nightmares or constantly remembering that traumatic moment, or just wanting to completely avoid it altogether. So with those psychological distress, that then trickles into behavioral things. Okay. And so pretty much, let's get an example. Somebody gets shot. You get shot, you have PTSD, you start having nightmares, you start having these anxious thoughts, you start being afraid, you don't want to go out in public. That trickles into the behavior things. When you do go out in public, you're nervous, you don't want to talk to people, you are resistant, you're hype. One of the biggest things is you're hyper vigilant, so you're always on the go. And so, honestly, what I've actually been come to learn is that for a lot of people of color, just the Black experience can cause symptoms that are very synonymous to PTSD. And so with PTSD, how would I suggest to treat it? One, I think if it is a severe PTSD, like you're having significant reoccurring nightmares, you really are very much so avoiding anything that's slightly related to that. I would say getting clinical help. I would say getting somebody that you could talk to when you're looking for a therapist, somebody that specializes in PTSD or that specializes in trauma or stressor related disorders. That's one of the number one things that I see in a lot of the clients that I have is trauma or stressor related disorders. So you can have an unspecified trauma disorder where it's not all the way to criteria of PTSD, but we still seeing those symptoms. And in that case, I would suggest the first thing is being able to, as best as you can, um, revisit that experience. And I don't mean go back to the place and those type of things, because I think that with a lot of behavior therapy, that's what's recommended. It is strongly suggested that you do that under the supervision of somebody who is really trained in that. So like when I was at RBT, we did some stuff with that kind of stuff, but somebody that's trained, because you don't want to re-traumatize yourself. You don't want to make it worse. But what you want to do is kind of minimize the problem. So I give this illustration. I wish I had a piece of paper. So our stress and our trauma, and this could apply to somebody with just general trauma, not just PTSD. Um, this is just stress, right? The problem never gets smaller. The problem never gets smaller. You just get bigger. You get stronger. You add more things. So if you think of your life as a backpack, right? And something traumatic happens, you put it in that backpack. That's one of the biggest things or the only thing in there. It's gonna be heavy, right? When you open up that backpack every time, you're gonna see it. You're gonna be like, ah, there go that shot again. Ah, there go that lost pregnancy I had. Ah, there goes that death that I had. Ah, there goes those suicidal thoughts that I had. Whatever the trauma is, that's all you're gonna see. And the best way to combat that is not to try to take that out your bag, because you can't undo what already happened in your life. So the best thing that I would suggest is to continue to add more things in there. So you add coping skills. You already know that this happened. You already know that this is causing this amount of distress in these areas for you, right? So we want to be as preventative and as proactive as we can. So if we say, okay, I know I've been shot, so I get anxious when I go visit my cousin's house because they be shooting over there. Okay. Well, one thing that you might put in your bag is you may put some noise canceling headphones, because when it gets loud and that music makes you anxious, maybe now you can put those on, right? Or maybe you don't go to that space at night. Maybe you go during the day. So the big point is to add things to your bag that allow you to cope with that experience, that allow you to process that experience, that allow you to just deal with the day-to-day things. Because like I said, the thing happens, we have this psychological distress, and 9 out of 10 times it presents in a behavioral change. So it presents in avoiding a situation. It presents in hypervigilant. You like, oh, every time something happens, you may be jumpy, or you just may be ready on go. And if you have seen some of the other podcast episodes, I always talk about the hand model of the brain, which is pretty much that when things go crazy, this is like the analogy of your brain. When stressful things happen, our lid literally flips. And this is the thinking part of our brain. It gets shut off and gets replaced with this emotional part of our brain and the physiological part of our brain. So we stop thinking, okay, how can I be good in this situation? And our body gets on fight or flight, and we start sweating, we start crying, we start yelling at people, we start running, we start doing those primal things. And so, one, educating yourself and knowing how does the brain work, how does your body function when you are in those high stress situations, or how have those traumatic experiences caused you to present today. That's the number one thing, so that you can then add those coping skills to your bag to help you deal with and self-soothe when those things arise, so that your day-to-day can be more tolerable and more bearable. Because again, the problem does not get smaller, we just get stronger. We add extra levels of cushion around that so that we can live in our day-to-day lives. But also, you can try a group therapy, because that kind of normalizes. I'm not the only one that has experienced this, or the only person that is having a difficult time dealing with this, and they may come up with ideas that can help you. So you can do a group therapy, you can find a behavioral therapist, you can find a one-on-one psychotherapist that can help you to revisit that. I know one intervention that they usually do is like have you write out narrative therapy. Narrative therapy is where you write out, you tell the story of that traumatic thing until it's not as, doesn't carry as much weight because you've said it 4 or 5, 6 times. So you write it down until you're able to say it out loud, until you're able to think about it. And then when you do have that, you take the power away from that. It's not scary anymore. It's not uncomfortable anymore because you process through it by saying, this is what happened. This is how I felt. And again, going back to that, what do I want? What am I doing? This happened to me. I want to be at peace, is what I'm doing by allowing these reoccurring thoughts to continue to impact me without having adding self-soothing techniques. Is that getting me that want that I need? Yes or no? If the answer is no, what are we going to do to put in place? If you don't want to do the work, that's fine. Stay traumatized, stay with the PTSD and stop complaining. But most people, they actually do want the better thing. So you put the work behind it, you make a plan, and that plan is saying, okay, identifying what's going on and finding those self-soothing coping skills. I really like weighted blankets. That's something that I seen a lot in the residentials that I worked in. Like I said, support groups with people who have similar things going on. That's also something that's really helpful. All right, next, let's see what we got. We got a couple more. What can I do for PTSD? Just answer that. Y'all love that. Okay. We are traumatized. We're going to get through it together, y'all. I promise. All right. So I'm going to answer a couple more. A couple more. What can I replace weed for self-care? All right. All right. So first, again, like I've continued to say, you got to ask yourself why. Why do you want to replace weed at all? And like, am I doing it for to cover something up, or is it just something I like? Because if it's just something you like and it's not causing you no harm, please smoke your weed. Please don't let these people tell you that you should not smoke weed and that you are self-medicating if that's not what you're doing. Only you can answer that though. Only you can know that truth. Okay. And if you say no, I just like to get high, to go to sleep, or to do this or to do that, it's not causing me distress, it's not causing you distress, baby. That's an unpopular opinion. I just had to have this conversation today with a kid and a case manager, and you know, but let's say you do, you say, okay, I'm self-soothing, I want something else. I do want to actually replace the weed. Then I would say go back to the drawing board. This particular question is, how can I replace weed with a self-care act? Go back to like the youngest version of yourself. What things did you enjoy? What things brought you peace? What things made you happy? And write that down. Write all that down. And then just try them. Try them. Try the things out. If you used to love playing volleyball, find a volleyball team. Just give it a whirl. And I think that's the biggest thing for adults. If you want to add a self-care practice, there are lots of things that you can do for self-care already embedded in the day-to-day routine that you have. But if you want to add one, you have that time and that capacity, then I say start looking at the things that you used to enjoy, like the youngest version of yourself that you used to enjoy. And once you run through that list, then go ahead and try things that you thought you would never do. Things you thought like, oh, no way, no Jose. Because you might surprise yourself. Self-care is not just taking a bubble bath. It's not just smoking weed. It's not just going to get your hair and your nails done. That's a big piece. Don't get me wrong. I love doing my hair. That's one of my favorite forms of self-care. But there are other things. Self-care can be just anything that you are doing this for you solely. I'm doing this activity for me to be happy, for me to be at peace. That could be going to a concert. That could be going and twerking at a brunch. But the biggest piece of that is you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. Like, okay, am I doing this for me? Or I'm good for a 2 for 1, or did I just get invited and I think it's kind of fun? It needs to be something that you intentionally do. I'm doing this for me. If nobody else saw it, if nobody else knew what was going on, if it ain't got nothing to do with nobody else, this is me. And it could be something that you do with other people. But again, going back to that intention of I'm doing this for me to pour back into my cup. Okay. So that's what I suggest, going back to things that you used to love when you were younger, or if you're feeling really adventurous, some things that you thought you would never do and giving it a whirl. And don't force it. If it's not a hit, it's not a hit. You don't have to quit the first time. Give it a try. But if it's not a hit, it's not a hit. There's so many things that you can do. You don't have to stay with that. All right. All right. Let's see. Next up, how do you deal with your partner? Oh, y'all got partners that don't want to go to therapy. I got that question again. Talk about the positivity of selfishness. Selfishness. Okay. So this is a short one. Be selfish, y'all. We just start talking about self-care and self-love. If you don't do it for you, nobody else is going to. If you don't do it for you, nobody else is going to. That doesn't mean that people don't care about you. It doesn't mean that people don't love you. But if you make things look easy, if you make it seem like it's not a big deal, I care about you enough, I love you, so I'm going to do it. People are going to continue to do that. One, there are people who are just nasty and want to leech off you. And there are other people who are like, she like that. She loves when I give her extra work. She loves cooking dinner, so being communicating, it is very positive to communicate. If something is hard, if something is not desirable, if something is strenuous for you or exhausting or even just distasteful, saying, yo, I don't really like this. That's the first step. And that's something that I am transparently that I'm working on. Being assertive and saying, like, I don't really like this. I don't really want to do this. I don't really know about this. So that's the first piece of it. And just doing that will empower you as well. If you do not care about yourself and put your mental health, your mental wellness, your physical health, your sanity, your desires, just the things that you want, if you don't make that a priority, nobody else will, because what it will look like is either one, it's not important to them. If it's not important to you, why the hell would it be important to anybody else? You don't care if you eat or not. I'm not about to force you to eat. I could love you all day long. But if it's not important to you, it's not gonna ever be as important to other people, even the people that care about you. Okay. So it is very important for you to be, and I don't necessarily like to use the word selfish, um, but just to be oriented towards self. Put yourself first. That's okay. You're supposed to put yourself first. That's fine. We need to normalize that. It took me a very long time to learn that. I need to put me first because I cannot help with a broken hand. I can't be a good partner, mom, coworker, boyfriend, girlfriend, sister, auntie, uncle, none of that if I'm not a good person to myself. It starts with home. How you treat yourself will trickle out to how you treat other people. If you treat yourself bad, you'll probably treat other people bad, or you'll overcompensate and treat them amazing, and then slightly internally have envy, like, how come nobody treated me like that? Because you ain't treating you like that. Okay. So you need to put yourself first. It is positive. We need to normalize that. Okay. It doesn't have to be called selfishness if you don't like that word, but you need to put yourself first. You need to care about yourself if you want to care about other people. Okay. Let's see. Where can I find resources on how to get a Black therapist? Okay. So there are a lot of different resources. So I follow a bunch of different Instagram pages. That's how I usually suggest. So one of them is Melanin Minds. One of them is Melanin Mental Health. Social media is a very powerful feature nowadays. Go on YouTube, go on Instagram, go on TikTok, go on Google and type Black therapists, minority mental health. You will get where you need to go. Okay. From what I hear, I'm not on BetterHelp, but BetterHelp also, they have a survey you can fill out where you can pick what type of therapist that you would like. Okay. So just as much as you on the internet scrolling for the new shoes and the new trends, you can find a bunch of Black therapists on there. So that's where I say start on social media. It's a platform that you already use, you already understand it, and there are a lot more people on there. Also, I'm about to start a therapeutic wellness coaching program, where you can sign up for sessions with me. It is not going to be as in depth as therapy. So therapy more so looks at your past and your why, and digs deep into the trauma. The therapeutic coaching that I will be offering will be looking more into what problems and symptoms and difficulties you're having right now today that you want to change for your life today and for tomorrow. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and slide in my DMs at wellness.list or the Blackwell Box, and we can holler at it. I can give you the information. I actually have a link in my bio right now. If you do want that wellness coaching, this is not a pay ad. I do not know who put that in there. But yes, I have wellness coaching that I am offering. So that's one thing if you wanna with your boy. All right. All right, next up, I'm also dropping a wellness workbook at the end of this month. A wellness workbook at the end of this month with interactive videos to explain the interventions that's in there. So that is one Black owned mental health resource that is going to be here by the end of this month, y'all. And if you did not know, it is Black and Indigenous People of Color Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. That is a mouthful, but yes, it is the month for Black people. So there's a lot right now. There's a lot right now, content and information and resources going around about how to get a Black therapist. So I will go to the last one, which is what does a typical day as a therapist look like? There is no typical day, y'all. There is no typical day. I do meetings, I do sessions, I do assessments. Sometimes I go to schools. I'm a community therapist, so sometimes I go to their homes. I'm kind of all over the place. A more traditional therapist probably sits in their office and people come to them, but I like to go out, move, shake, dance. So there is really no typical thing. The most common thing that I see people for is emotional regulation, impulse control, creating that space between what you feel and how you act, helping them kind of understand these feelings and regulate them more in a day-to-day space to be the happiest version of themselves. Um, so a lot of impulse trauma and adjustment disorders kind of things is the main thing that I usually see. But honestly, there is no typical day. There is no typical day. Let me go through. I'm gonna look real quick to see if there's any more questions. Okay, I already answered that. All right, so that's really it. So thank y'all so much for tuning in to this is the last episode, the season finale of season 2 of the Blackwell Box Podcast. Talk to me nice live Q&A. If you have not already, make sure you're following the Blackwell Box on all platforms. That's the Blackwell Box. Make sure you go ahead and stream the video and the audio of the podcast. Catch up on season 1, season 2. Share this with a friend. It's your friend. It's your friend. And I got some heat coming for season 3, but y'all really not even about to be ready. We keep turning up. You already know we got the merch on the way. We got the wellness workbook on the way. We got the coaching unlocking at the end of this month. So make sure that y'all stay tuned in. And if you have any other questions, feel free to slide in my DMs at the Blackwell Box or wellness.list. If you have any minority or just mental health questions in general, please do not slide in my DMs on no trash because me and my girlfriend will jump you. But if you have a mental health question, go ahead, or comment concern, go ahead and slide in my DMs. We are here to help. All right, here at the Blackwell Box. So thank y'all for tuning in. You already know how this go. Make sure that you stay Black, stay blessed, and stay beautiful. And most importantly, y'all, make sure y'all stay well. All right. Don't come back next Wednesday because it's the last one. So go look at the other episodes. Peace.